Welcome to the cold, hard truth on sports.
I apologize in advance if I am out of line here.
Brace yourselves, boys. We're going in.
Am I hallucinating here? Just what in the hell do you think you are doing?
I can't believe you.
I'm not reading, I'm just looking at the picture. Welcome to the cold, hard truth on sports.
Welcome, everybody, to another great week here of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports here on the Go Long Media channel on blogtalkradio.com, as well as over on Spreaker. That's right, the free Spreaker app you can go download right now. Free, it's Spreaker. Free Spreaker app. You can listen to the full show, unabated, all 3 hours, just by downloading the free app. Wherever you find apps, if it's the App Store, Apple Cart, or Play Store, whatever it is, go and download that to listen to the show. And then all of you for the past few weeks have been liking and following and watching the show over on Facebook as well. We had just been doing the overtime segment on Facebook, but last week we did a whole show. We got some pretty decent responses on that, so we said, hell, let's do it again this week. So a lot to get into this week. Obviously, last night we had one hell of a football game. I think if you could put into real life what the NFL's wet dream would look like, I think it was a lot like last night's game. So we'll get it. I'll definitely get into that. I got a bunch of different directions that a game like this, what it means to different parts of the league, to sports, so on and so forth. I'll get into all that tonight. I want to get into a little bit of, obviously, what's going on with Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy, which is significant there, as well as LeBron's going to be going back to Cleveland for the first time since he became a Laker. I'll touch on that, as well as we have a new top 25 in college football. I'll run down the top 25 and preview which is going to be the last week of the regular season for pretty much every team. I'll break down the preview for the week that is coming up here this weekend. For a lot of teams, some teams it's already started. Yeah, you get into this time of year and you start having you just don't know when people are going to play. Friday, I will get into Friday as well. I see some people wanting me to comment on messaging directly, and you can, if you're on Facebook, you can comment, and I try to keep up with it as the show's going on. If you have questions or comments, you can put them on Facebook or message me directly there. That's at the CHT on Sports on Facebook, anywhere on social media, really. Or you can message me directly. My handle is at Matt Long Sports. If you can see, they're on the whiteboard behind me. So, yes, this is the 275th episode of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports tonight. So, they wouldn't let us do fireworks inside, so we won't. It wasn't in the budget? Yeah, that too. Yeah. We invited Jason Pierre-Paul. True story. We did. Oh. Yeah, Also, and what I want to lead off with here, did you get the audio on that? Nope. Okay. No audio on it. All right. So we don't have the audio on it. Why don't I just do it later? Can you pull the audio? It's worth listening to. Anyway, so Manny Pacquiao is still boxing. I know those that aren't as intimate with boxing may not know that. And he's going to be fighting here in a few weeks. It's on January 19th in Las Vegas. He will be fighting against Adrian Broner. For a long time was under tutelage, worked out with, friends, close with Floyd Mayweather. And in part of the time, you just look up Adrian Broner, Broner. He's had his... He's given TMZ a lot of content to work with. Same as Floyd. As Floyd there. But he had a very... How do I word this? A very typical remark, an Adrian Broner remark to a question. This week, they were on Tuesday. They were doing a press conference. Or was it yesterday? No, it was yesterday. So the press conference, it was asked of him, was kind of more so directed towards Pacquiao, that if he sees himself fighting Mayweather again. And Broner steps in for a fair enough reason, you know. And he's just like, you know, Mayweather's not fighting here. You know, he said, F Mayweather, no disrespect. Of course, say whatever you want as long as you say no disrespect. That's the rule. But I'm the one fighting here, you know. And then he kind of, the question was turned more towards him, towards Broner, and I guess his feelings is kind of hurt from that, and he's basically like, just watch it now. He's like, I might punch you, and this may seem outside of the norm for most people that might see this or hear somebody says this, these sort of things. But for Adrian, to know Adrian Broner, it's just Adrian Broner being Adrian Broner. And Manny Pacquiao made it clear in the that he still wants a rematch against Floyd. He still wants that. I think that fight would sell. Floyd clearly still sells. But But just the inflammatory antics here in this. Now, we again, there have been Broner, a couple other guys that are pretty notorious for finding ways to foul up their entrance into a fight. So, even though the fight's on January 19th, it's a title fight for the belt that Manny Pacquiao currently holds. He finds his way to get in his own way. So, once we see him in the ring, I doubt that there's many things that could happen that would stop the fight from happening. This is a fight I'm definitely going to watch, as well as December 1st. I'll be watching Deontay Wilder defend his WBC heavyweight title against Tyson Fury, which has been another. They've done a world press tour there. It's been comical to watch. But people, I really don't get why. I mean, you got the quote. Okay. It says F. Floyd, man. No disrespect. But he ain't fighting Floyd. He's fighting me. So, the question, it was really to Pacquiao. And then the reporter turns the question to Broner. Man, he says, I'm about to beat your mother in ass. You worried about Floyd? He already beat you, brother. Told the reporter. He went on to say, you keep on talking about rematches. You're gonna get ass. You gotta get past me first. So, I mean, yeah, this is typical Broner fashion of talking, but in Broner's defense, which is something hardly ever uttered, the fight is with Broner. Broner has to find a way to beat Pacquiao, who again is a title holder at welterweight and has shown he's been able to continue to compete at this weight class. Something that Broner hasn't been able to do. And I think, honestly, Adrian Broner is better at 140 than 147. He's a better fighter at 140 than 147. But we'll get more into that as we get closer to that fight. We'll have James Bell on to talk about it, that fight, and as well as the Wilder fight. But so I want to get into this Monday Night Football game. All right. It's not the. I know so many people say, "Oh, it's the best game I've ever seen." It was a really entertaining game. I have tough time labeling any one thing the best I've ever seen. It was a great game. I thoroughly enjoyed the game. It is fun to watch these high-scoring games. I don't know if it was more Patrick Mahomes gambling and coming up craps, or if it was the Rams' defense capitalizing on opportunity. Probably a little bit of both. And it's tough to say that, a defense won the game. I mean, out of the 5 turnovers Patrick Mahomes had, it turned into 21 points for the Rams. This was a record-type night in a lot of ways. The two teams totaled 105 points in the game. Third highest point total in any game in NFL history. And you sit back and you're just like, there's no defense. So to say that giving up, in the process of giving up 51 points, that a defense would have won it, the defense for the Rams could have won it for them, is really kind of a flabbergasting thing to say. But it very well might have. And although they gave up 51 points, we've seen the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I've commented on it, there's something with this Rams defense that teams have started to cue on. They've been able to start picking up on and taking advantage of. We saw it. We've seen it really start since week 3. Teams have been consistently putting up 20, 23, 31. 30. I mean, the Chargers put up 23, Vikings put up 31, Seahawks put up 31. The Broncos, who are likely could fire Vance Joseph, their head coach, they put up 20 points. The 49ers only put up 10. The Packers could have won the game had it not been for, I don't know, clock management or poor play calling. I don't know, different things. Lots of different things. 27. Packers put up 27. Saints won, put up 45. The Seahawks in the second game against the Seahawks, they put up 35 or 31 again. The Chiefs again put up 51 in a losing effort. So there's something that teams have figured out, despite having, a guy in Aaron Donald who I vehemently believe should be in running for the MVP award with what he's done and meant to this team. Because although that they've found ways to give up points, he has more quarterback hits, sacks, hurries, and has made a bigger impact for his team than you could argue just about anyone has. But the problem is when you talk about a player that doesn't have the ball in their hand all the time, a lot of voters and a lot of people they struggle because the same tangibility isn't there. They can't process it the same way because they don't affect the game in a tangible way like a quarterback can, or a running back, or other offensive players, it's tremendous that you have a guy that sees more double teams than anybody else in the league and still has more sacks. He's an interior defensive lineman. So he doesn't have the luxury of the edge. He has to split two guys that are his size or bigger to get to the quarterback. And he does it on a regular basis. And it's a tremendous thing to see. I don't know. So right now, Aaron Donald is looking at 14.5 sacks. That's tremendous. The league, why do they have him listed as a defensive end? He plays a 3 technique. Okay. It's just TJ Watt and JJ Watt are tied for 4th with 10 sacks, by the way. Interesting. Yeah, so out of his total tackles, 25 total tackles, 14.5 have been sacks. He has 13 assists, 3 forced fumbles. He's recovered 2 of them. Doesn't have any interceptions this season, but again, I mean, you look at the value of him. It's just tremendous, and I just don't see how you wouldn't consider this guy in the most valuable player race when it comes to players. He clearly has been. And it's a funny thing when we look back a few years back when the draft came up. I know a lot of people weren't so high on Aaron Donald because they don't watch a lot of Pitt games, or they just don't do their research, or they don't understand what they're looking at. I mean, I didn't predict he was going to be the best player in the best interior defensive lineman in the league the day he stepped on the field. I didn't predict that. But I did see him being one of the top guys in the league. I seen that. That's where he was for me in my grading of him. And I felt he could have been a number 1 overall pick. He ended up being he ended up falling in the draft a little ways, and that's okay. The Rams are the benefactor of that. So, yeah, it fell to the 13th pick. The 13th pick. So, this is his 5th year in the league. He's been a Pro Bowler 4 out of the 5 years in the league. He's been first team All-Pro 3 out of the 5 years. Associated Press Defensive Player of the Year in 2017. NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2014. the Pro Football Writers Association Rookie of the Year 2014. You know, I mean, it's just a rack of awards. I don't know how he's not. Really, that's the thing is, like, when you see guys that are just continually great and consistently great each and every year, they don't always get the same due and same respect as they should. So, but it's not a worry to me. He was great last night. He was phenomenal last night with what he did in the game. And you know, and I'm seeing some comments here, and I've read some comments earlier today. I mean, you look at a game that was, again, most of the scoring happened in the second half. The bulk of it happened in about mid-third quarter on. Because that, I think, was the spread 50, was it 40-some points? 40-some points? Yeah, it was like a 40-some point over-under. I think a -3.5 for the Rams. And again, this game, I talked a little bit about it last week, getting moved back to L.A. The fires had no impact on it. But I think it moving back to L.A. And by the way, the NFL did announce next year they will be going back to Mexico and playing a game in Mexico. There's not going to be a make-up game in Mexico this year. I know some fans from Kansas City and from, LA did get stuck out there on vacations they couldn't aboard or whatnot, so they end up watching the game out there. But I mean, you got to go on a trip to Mexico. Enjoy it. You didn't get to go to this game, which turned out to be a pretty phenomenal game, but I don't think you get the same game there, especially if it's the issue of field conditions. And this atmosphere, just the quick turnaround, though, it just shows you how well LA works out. I mean, they had the joint rocking. It was like a college football atmosphere there at the LA Memorial Coliseum. It was packed. I mean, short turnaround for these teams, and the stadium was sold out. It was packed. It was loud, and we seen, Kansas City kind of came out slow out of the gate, down 13. And got a late touchdown in the first quarter to make it more of a game. Scored 16 in the second quarter, to make it a little bit more manageable going into halftime. But by the time we got midway through the third quarter, they had already pretty much had been beaten. And the Bucs, I'm told the Bucs lost, 7 figures. They lost their ass on this game. Because a lot of people were betting the over. And a lot of it because of the hype. The last boxing match I paid for, as a fan I paid for, was Mike Tyson when he fought Etienne. That was my fault. I will never get that money back. The undercard was and Etienne, I think, was knocked out in like 16 seconds. So, there's a lot of hyperbole and build-up to fights. Again, that's why Adrian Broner is acting the way that he did when he's going to fight Manny Pacquiao. I'll share my opinion on that in the weeks to come. Who's going to win that fight? But a lot of times, the event, usually sports related, game, match, whatever, it doesn't necessarily live up to the hype. This game did. And the over-under was smashed. Doubled. More than doubled. And this is where you get end up being the third highest scoring game in NFL history. 105 points. Yeah, it did look. I agree. I mean, message me here. Does this look like a reminiscent of a Big 12 football game? Maybe. Yeah, we can go with that. But again, it wasn't. We have to understand this is the new direction that the NFL wants to go in. And there's been a lot of so when I do, because now it's getting into that time of year, spending more time doing football evaluations, scouting. I'm not big on mock drafting. I do the scouting. I do projecting, where I see somebody going. Not necessarily just in the draft, but where they may fit best in the league, or which direction I see where their ceiling is. Kind of in that sense. And we see with the way high school football has changed and the fun, fast spread RPOs, so on and so forth, have been implemented in the game from the high school to the college level, and we don't see as much of those pro-style, prototypical passers, pocket passers in the league. And accompanying with that, having a mobile quarterback that has the ability to scramble, extend the play, just creates such a dynamic wrinkle in the team's offense that it's hard for them not to kind of mold the game towards that. I mean, we saw it when Vic came into the league. And again, a lot of my audience will be more familiar with Michael Vick, even though some of you only ever remember him playing for, the Eagles. So, or the Steelers. So, the thing is when you had a guy, not only was he left-handed, which adds a different dynamic to the throw, you'd be surprised how things change when a ball spins the other direction. It makes a difference. It changes the basic tendency, because most quarterbacks are right-handed. When you get a left-handed quarterback, it can change some things for you on the defense. It can upset the normal balance of tendencies. And it works with left-handers in anything. It doesn't matter if it's golf. One sport that was really big in was actually bowling, because of the oil on the lanes. Now, because more people are right-handed than left-handed, the oil wears out quicker and differently for a right-handed bowler than a left-handed bowler, just because of use. And your slants and your drops and stuff that's going to come open to the left-handed quarterback is more tendency middle left than middle right. So right-handed quarterbacks are going to do middle right on the field when they're looking at it. Because that's the first thing in front of them. It's more directly in front of them. So typically you see someone lean more towards their favorite. And seeing this change, the NFL struggled with it for a while. Because a lot of times, for a while, they were getting guys out of college that were in these systems, and they're just like, they're not a pro quarterback. They can't be a pro quarterback. They can throw okay, but then you don't utilize their quality of being able to run and develop the passing. And you take away something that makes them different, makes them unique, and makes them more dynamic. Because the pro game isn't and hadn't been predicated on the mobility of the quarterback. It's his ability to step up in the pocket and only having to use his legs to extend plays. Brett Favre, Steve Young, using the legs to extend the plays and not as a primary weapon. Or like Cam Newton. See, that's the thing that's worked so well that Norv Turner has used there in Carolina is Cam Newton's ability to run. He's a big, strong guy. He's not quite a running back, but he sure is an athlete. And that's part of the game. You have to account for that when you play the Carolina Panthers. And then you see guys like I say, Brett Favre, Steve Young. That's where you see guys like Patrick Mahomes, guys that are Baker Mayfield, Carson Wentz, guys that are good with their legs, but they're even better with extending the play with their legs. Aaron Rodgers can run. He's not a guy that you're going to think, okay, they're going to run an RPO with him, but they might. The thing is, he has such a mix of elusiveness, ability to extend the play, and awareness, but he can just with little effort contort his body, throwing across the field, moving the opposite direction on a dime. And that's this ability just to ad-lib and make something happen is the craziest part about Aaron Rodgers. Patrick Mahomes has some of those qualities, but he wants to press it downfield. We saw it last night, trying to push. I was talking to my son the other day. He was trying to. We have this container for the dog food, and he's like pressing it, and the lid part pops off. It broke. When it broke, it came apart. And I said, Daddy, I broke it. Like, had to break. He said, I was pushing it wouldn't close, and I kept pushing it and it broke. I was like, all right. Well, why did it break? He said, because I don't know, I pushed too hard. Yeah, but it wasn't because you necessarily pushed too hard, even though you did. It's you were trying to force something to happen that wasn't going to happen. And it broke. And I think last night, that's where we see Patrick Mahomes. 5 turnovers. 3 interceptions. The last 2 interceptions, even though they were still in the game, the last 2 interceptions what killed it for him. And just, if you just watched the end of the game, or even if you, let's say you fell asleep and you didn't get to see the end, the Rams took the lead, right? They took the lead, and Patrick Mahomes had the opportunity to get, with a minute 49, he had an opportunity to take the lead back. They ended up, in 4 plays, ended up getting a first down. But he ends up throwing the ball short. And and you could tell some of the game, maybe the moment, was kind of wearing on Mahomes in a sense from his throws. Because his throws were they were short, underthrown, even though they had velocity on it, you know. You're throwing over the middle to Kelsey. You know, you need to get it over or further away from the defender. You know, with a minute 49, they get it back. They driving it downfield, and he throws an interception, trying to forcing the ball to Kelsey. He didn't place the ball in the right place, at the right point. Now, the Kansas City defense ends up forcing a 3-and-out punt. Now, this is a key point of the game because I felt like they got the ball with the minute, was a minute 20 something? It was still like a minute 20 something left in the game. And in the course of 4 plays, they got it at a minute 18. They got it at a minute and 18. And in the course of their 3-and-out, they only ran 26 seconds off the clock. They gave the ball back with almost a minute on the clock. At a minute 4, they punted it away. And it was returned for 14 yards. But the biggest issue was, okay, and we see this a lot with tempo teams or teams that are high-scoring teams, you know, running that clock down. I give it to Sean McVay because he understood that 3 points may not be enough to win the game, so he wants to win it. But also, in that understanding, you see more throws to the outside of the field. He wasn't setting up plays for the middle of the field. Now, again, in hindsight, it doesn't matter because they won the game anyways. But both teams really did give each other multiple opportunities to win this game. McVay going 3 and out and giving that ball back. And they started, where was it? They started from, why doesn't it give down in distance? 1st and 10 from the 12, from the 12-yard line. Okay? And that was part of it. So they bailed each other out in many occasions. So let me start with the LA's 3. They're 3 and out. You have it started out with a penalty, so they started out going backwards. So it was 1st and 15, right? Then there was Goff threw a short pass to Woods, and he hauled it in for 4 yards. And then forced Kansas City to call a timeout. You need more yards than that, but you forced a timeout out of them. Next, Goff throws a pass. And now this pass was a lateral pass. Not down the field, not in the middle of the field, not getting closer to a first down. A lateral. That might have ended up in negative yards had it not been incomplete. It comes to 3rd down. Another short pass, this time to the left side to Brandon Cooks. Pretty much another lateral. It was actually a foiled screen pass. Stop for no gain. Comes up 4th and 11. Now they have to punt with 1:04. So, short, underneath route, forced a timeout, and then an incompletion. Why are we having 2 lateral passes? I don't get this. If they're giving you underneath to prevent you from going deep, it's going to be kind of peculiar maybe in that situation because you're winning. They're probably more so playing the run, which you kind of see that it did look like they were ready for the run. But even though if you give it to Todd Gurley, I mean, he had a good night. He's a quality. He had a great night, 55 yards, but he's probably underutilized. And if you put, I thought he had more yards than that. It was closer to 100. He was not. I misunderstood. Yeah, I mean, he clearly was. If he's only on 12 carries at that point, maybe you hand it to Todd Gurley. Get 3-4 yards. All you're trying to do is keep the clock running and picking up first downs. If in this situation If the Rams pick up 2 first downs, that's the ball game. Because now they've forced Kansas City to waste their timeouts, and they can't stop the clock after that. If you're slow playing and playing the middle of the field, forcing them to take timeouts, forcing them to come up and make tackles, you can still take shots down the field because you're showing underneath. And then that gives you options for play action. I didn't see play action on those 3 plays. The 3 and out from the Rams. Any. There wasn't even a ton of motion to keep the defense thinking, no. The Kansas City defense just stood tall, kept everything underneath, and Goff just went underneath with it. That was kind of a key mistake and situation. Whereas if LA makes that mistake against Aaron Rodgers, they probably lose the game. They make that mistake against Ben Roethlisberger or Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, that's your game. The game's gone. You give those guys 40 seconds, if you're punting it to them with 1:04 on the clock, that's all the time in the world to drive downfield and score a touchdown. You're up 3. Worst case scenario, they got to get it 40 yards, 50 yards to get a field goal, if that, to tie it and take it to overtime. So the Chiefs bailed them out on that by Mahomes coming out and trying to press it downfield and throwing an interception. So it didn't turn into points. His last 2 interceptions didn't turn into points. But the first interception did. His first interception went for a touchdown, and then a fumble he lost. They recovered for a touchdown too. So the Rams' defense scoring is what won them this game. There were some issues on the offensive side making sure that they're keeping that momentum going. And by the way, the Rams winning this game, this is not a momentum game for them. The Rams clearly have 0 momentum. They're struggling with defense. They're really, as much as the defense won the game for them, they're struggling with that defense. It's not known for being a scoring defense. It's clearly allowing, 3 to 4 touchdowns a game. And for them to be a dominant team, that's something they have to really find out what they can do. So that could be what, in a lot of people's minds, will pull the rug from underneath Aaron Donald for MVP candidacy. Is the defense isn't doing better. His team's winning, but his defense is giving up points. And, we're just not going to – I just don't think we're going to see defenses like we used to see. Like we used to see with the Bears and with the Ravens, just so well put together defenses like those. They're just shut down. It's the thing is the rules have changed. And again, with having to take what you get, now the NFL and offenses have started to adapt to the prospects that they're getting in as quarterbacks and athletes that they're getting in. It's making playing defense harder. When you have guys that are the size of an offensive tackle running a 4.445 and catching the football like a wide receiver, who do you put on him? Who do you put on the guy that's 6'5", 260 and runs a 4.5? How do you usually don't have safeties that are big enough. We're starting to see more safeties and corners that are more of the stretch, the longer 6'2", 6'3" defensive backs, but they're smaller. They're still like 210, 220. There's not many guys that are the size of linebackers that have the speed or size of a defensive end that has the speed of a defensive back. You don't see that much. And even if you do, you got that guy on the edge running after the passer every single play. You're not utilizing them in coverage. So, and even if you do, you're usually looking at a mismatch there because it's not so as natural. You have good route runners. You just can't do nothing with that. So that's the thing is, I tell people, a lot of guys, they go in the league, these guys are fast, they're fast. In-game speed and straight line speed are different. Yes, we get guys in that have, like Bobby Rainey, he had world-class track speed. And when you see him on the field, you can see it on the field. But his ability to translate that to football didn't work so much. I mean, once he gets the ball and he has open field, you can see it. But before that, without the ball in his hand, wasn't really translating. Route running is so key. Being able to follow your blocks and set up your blocks. It's not just about following the fat guys in front of you. Sometimes you have to be patient and wait for your fat guy to get a hat on a hat so you can follow him. Wait for somebody to go through the door and hold it for you before you walk through the door. That's essentially what it is. They're opening the door for you. Are you patient enough to allow them to open the door for you so you have room? So it's sorry about that. Some little technical issue here. But anyways, that would just second to thank those of you that are tuning in each week on Blog Talk Radio. That's really where we even have most of our technical issues, is on Blog Talk Radio. Thank you for all of you that have downloaded the Spreaker app. If you haven't, go download the free Spreaker app. Go to your Play Store, Apple Store, wherever you get your apps at. Spreaker, Spreaker. And those of you that are over watching on and catching the show over on YouTube, we've for a while I've done just overtime segment. Last week we got a pretty good response to the show, so we decided this week to go ahead and do the full show on there. So, but this Kansas City Rams game really lived up to the bill in every aspect of it. Getting moved from Mexico City with the poor field conditions to the LA Coliseum just played in favor of this outcome. All the environment and atmosphere and everything that's been going on in the area, for them to have this opportunity the last minute and fans just really show up, it was helped build this the outcome to this game. And I just, for those that are so upset and they say it's no defense, there very much was defense going on in this game. But you have to understand that this is closer to the new norm for where the league is going, rather than something that's wrong with the league. This is going to be, these higher scoring games is slowly going to start being more of the norm. And again, it isn't that the defenses are getting worse. It's a lot of it that offenses are getting more complex, and defenses can't play defense the same way because of rules. And we saw beginning of this game, again, they went more of like an all-star crew to officiate this game, and the referees looked like Oprah out there. You get a flag, and you get a flag, and you get a flag, and you get a flag. You know, everybody, they were just throwing laundry. It's like a musical in a laundromat, and just laundry thrown all over the place. It's just, you know, I'm not big on a lot of calls. Like, see, this was one aspect of it. Like, it was probably too many calls, and then there's the other aspect where you don't see any calls, and you get upset about it. And then you watch the Big Ten, and you're like, what is that call? How is that pass interference? Like, if you have commentators and fans trying to figure out, well, maybe it could have been, you probably screwed up. I think the Big Ten probably has to issue quite a few, sorry, we effed up that call each week, that it's probably just on an auto apologize. Every school gets one every week from the Big Ten. But yes, Nebraska, I did watch that game. Nebraska did win. They beat Michigan State. Yes, I did say Nebraska would win that game. Yeah, well, actually, I'll address that in the college football segment when we get into that, which we will here in about 10 minutes. Let's see. Okay. So I'm going to move on to the other Aaron in the league, Aaron Rodgers. Now, Okay, hold on. Before I do that, let me welcome on. He is a contributor for football as well as the editor for boxing. He's the host of the Boxing Source radio show, which you can hear on Blog Talk Radio, on Anchor, a bunch of other places on Sunday nights. Mr. James Bell. How you doing, James?
Hey, yo, what's going on?
It's going. So what do you think of the Monday night game?
I mean, a lot of offense, a few defensive plays. I think, it was something that the NFL wanted. It was kind of like the game between the Rams and the Saints. So, they kind of, got that. But, a lot of if you kind of point to games that, a lot of people want to say are like the best games that they've seen this season, excuse me, they'll probably refer to, this game, the Rams, Saints, and, Patriots, Chiefs. And all of those games, you saw at least, 35 points or more scored by, at least one or both teams. So, the thing about it is, here, you're not really going to see a NFL with a defensive battle of sorts anymore. They want to see, points being scored. And that, that's been their motive over the past few seasons with the way that they have, protected the quarterbacks. Protecting players in general, but protecting quarterbacks, protecting receivers, and, not really giving defensive backs much leeway as far as covering receivers down the field. So this is basically what you get.
And so is this, because when I watched the game, again, obviously this was two very talented teams offensively going out there and putting up points. But one thing that I saw is it kind of was a sloppy game, really, for both teams. Mahomes, I felt, was trying to do more in this game to push it downfield. Maybe some of that was what Andy Reid was talking about, the play calling. Maybe some of it was the decision-making of a young quarterback that's just really trying to show up big. But again, if you just take the last two possessions for both teams, you don't really get the sense that they were, even just coming out of the play calling, let alone the execution. You have the Rams scoring. Then you have then the Chiefs get the ball back. They end up throwing an interception. Poorly placed ball by Patrick Mahomes. Needed a bit more touch on it, and most of all, where ball placement wasn't in the right place. So Kelsey tried to get around it to catch it, but he just couldn't get to it. Right to the guy, basically. So he gives the ball back. And the Rams, so they have an opportunity. They end up going 3 and out. They run 26 seconds off the clock. They have a minute. They basically had a minute 30 or something like that, a minute 20-something on the clock. They run off 26 seconds. They threw a 4-yard or 3-yard gain to Woods, and then they threw two laterals to Cooks and to forget who the other receiver was they threw to. But 2 laterals. It's why are you trying to throw laterals? You're down 3. You're on your end of the field. If you're throwing, you want to go downfield or in the middle to where at least you're forcing a timeout, which on the first play to Woods, he did. He forced Andy Reid to take a timeout. But you're also trying to dig out of a hole that you created by having a penalty on the first play. See, some of these play calls, it really doesn't make a ton of sense for me with some of the up-tempo or spread offenses. They try to get, I get you have playmakers like Cooks on the outside, but on third, why are you calling that in 3rd and 11? On 3rd and 11, why are you trying to do, he had to fight to get no gain on the play. Like, the play calling itself didn't make sense, Now you're giving the ball back, you're punting away at 1:04. 1:04 against, if you're in the NFC Championship and you're against Aaron Rodgers, you're probably losing that game. If you're against Russell Wilson in the NFC Championship game against Russell Wilson, you're probably going to lose that game too. If it's in the Super Bowl against Ben Roethlisberger, against Tom Brady, veteran guys like that, they take advantage of those moments. You give those guys a minute on the clock, 40 seconds on the clock to win a game, to get at least 3 points, you could pretty much go ahead and give them at least 3 points. Except for in Aaron Rodgers' case. Because right now, if you look at these Packers games, you could easily say that the Packers, you can easily conceive how the Packers and the Rams could actually have the same record right now. If you go through their games.
Well,
but it's a bunch of missed field goals here. It's drop passes there. It's oddly called stuff here. Defensive, penalties, extending drives. Again, it's Aaron Rodgers keeps saying relax, but I can just use this opportunity to segue into it. This is why I see, Mike McCarthy's done there. He will not be their coach next year, but the Packers aren't going to fire him in season. They don't want it to make it look like Aaron Rodgers is forcing him out. So I think, he'll get a job quick. But I don't think this is, it really isn't working for Aaron Rodgers for there. And, they got a new GM this year. It's going to be interesting to see what direction they go. See, that's the thing. It's like, and what head coach that is really so up there right now can you just pull out of a hat and be like, yeah, we could hire this guy? How many coaches out there are just like, yep, this is definitely the direction that we're going. I just, there really isn't a ton of options to just, if any options, just to go that way. A home run head coach hire. And the thing is, the Packers historically don't spend money. They want to draft and develop guys, but in the process, they end up not necessarily developing where they need to, i.e. defense, and relying on the guys that they end up developing at wide receiver with the help of having, one of the most talented quarterbacks to play the position, and zero run game. Aaron Jones had 40 yards and a touchdown. They really don't have a run game, the Packers, at all. And a defense gives up 20-some points every single game.
Yeah.
Even at the beginning of the season, they won by 1 point against the Bears. They gave up 23. The tie to the Vikings, they gave up 29. The loss to the Redskins was 31. They shut out the Bills, but it was the Bills. The Lions, they lose to the Lions. They give up 31. They win against the 49ers. They still give up 30. They lose to the Rams, 29. They lose to the Patriots, 31. They beat the Dolphins, who have been pretty terrible too, 12. And then the Seahawks again. They play the Seahawks. They lose and they give up 27. So if you're giving up 3 to 4 touchdowns every game, what's the difference? The difference is your offense. If you go and look at, compare how this offense, the balance of this offense versus the Rams. The Rams are doing the same issue, having the same issues on defense, but they're able to get 1 to 2 more touchdowns out of their offense and or 1 or 2 more stops out of their defense. That's what it is. They got the talent, and that's the NFL. It's that slim margin of difference. You pay more money to guys to have better guys there, to have better coaches there, to get a couple more possessions in a game, to maybe get a couple of scores either way. You know? That's what it is. That's what the difference is. And again, this is a Rams team that is missing a good amount of a couple guys, stars out of their secondary. So it's yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to get into the Broncos. The Broncos are the other direction.
Well, I mean, they beat the Chargers, didn't they?
Yeah.
I don't know how.
But that's the NFL. Everybody can beat everybody. Everybody can beat everybody on any given week in the NFL. You know? They can. And that happens. You know?
Yeah, especially when the Bucs already got 3 wins. No, I mean, my bad. Sorry.
That's a funny thing. So, you know, I was talking to somebody that was somebody's actually working on, was trying to get a coaching position with the Bucs yesterday. It's kind of a weird thing. And it's like, what the football is going on with the Bucs? It just doesn't make sense. You know, you got Mike Evans, is top 3 wide receiver in the league. Then you get Deshaun Jackson. You have 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends really that you can use that can receive. You have a decent offensive line. You got Goodwin, you got Humphreys, which are good, 2 good possession guys. And you got a defense that has they have some injuries in the secondary, but you know, they have good linebackers and defensive, and a couple good defensive linemen. It's kind of what is the issue? Well, I think part of the problem is one, on offense. If we just look at offense, is Dirk Cutter's offenses do a good job of being that stat monster. Stat monster. They really do put up stats. But a lot of what's coming into that and what I'm having some people kind of relay to me that they feel, again, I haven't looked all that much into it, which I will, is they feel like his offenses also create more of instances for turnover, for interceptions, just because of the way the play's designed and where the ball has to go. I thought that more came on the players executing it, but evidently a lot of it is also in play design as well. And they feel like some of the play designs, the calls, the way his offenses are ran, increase the number of interceptions that the quarterbacks have. There's a trend with it. You saw the highest interceptions with Matt Ryan during his time there. You saw a high amount of interceptions with Jameis Winston and with Ryan Fitzpatrick in Tampa. Which I haven't went back to Arizona and looked at Dallas when he was a coach there. I haven't went and looked at the Jaguars really there, so I don't know if it's really a thing or not. But in the last two stops, that's what has shown. Could be. But also, the way that they used Deshaun Jackson. I understand when he said, I want to be traded, I completely understand. He's being misused. If he was in an offense where they could get him on those deep routes and they could space him out so you could catch him down the field on open routes, because again, Deshaun Jackson is a guy, if you hit him in stride, he'll do stuff. If you get him to where he can get the ball and then make a move in open space, he's going to help you there. He is not a 50-50 ball guy. Deshaun Jackson is not going to go up and fight for the ball for you. That's not what he does. He's more finesse. You get it to him, he'll go do something with it. But if you make him go get it, you're probably going to throw an interception. And I've seen a few times where had he put either a little bit more effort into tipping the ball away or playing or going for the ball, trying to get the ball, that probably wouldn't have been interceptions or could have been completions. But he's I'm not knocking him. That's just not part of his game. That's not what he does. He doesn't excel at that. He does certain things well. Now, if they used him more in the middle of the field, where they almost always have, they always find Godwin when he's there. They're always finding Humphrey when he's there. You're finding, I'm telling you this, I would rather get the ball to Deshaun Jackson in the middle of the field with space to run than Godwin. I'm pretty sure Deshaun Jackson's going to do more with that. So it's not like once he gets the ball, he goes down on first contact. No, he fights for it. He makes moves. He makes people miss. He runs hard. He's just not going to fight for the ball in the air. He's not going to sacrifice his body going up for a 50-50 ball. That's just not his game. He just doesn't do that. For whatever reason. That's just not him.
Right, yeah.
So I'm not expecting him to go do something completely outside the norm. But at the same time, if you're a quarterback, you shouldn't be throwing a ball, 50-50 ball up to Deshaun Jackson, because he's not going to go for that. That's not his game. You need to get it down. He'll dive for it. He'll try to get it in front of him. But if you're throwing it up, so it's the ball's going over his head. He's going to watch. He'll put a hand. You get that? More like, where are you throwing it? You might get a more disgust. What are you doing? Why are you throwing it? I'm here. Why is it here? Mike Evans is on the other side of the field. I'm not Mike Evans. Just put it here in my chest or where my hands are, and I'll get it. And then I'll go somewhere with it. But if you're throwing it up here, you're not going to see Deshaun Jackson pull out a one-handed Odell Beckham catch. It's not him.
Right.
It's not his game. Don't expect him to do that. It's not just people are wanting him to do that, but that's not him. That's not what he does. So don't expect that. Look, that's Mike Evans. So if they start using him different, if I was him, and I knew Dirk Cutter was staying, if they said they were going to spend one more year, which he has, this year's the out year for him. They could cut him and not owe him anything. But if they're going to keep that last year of the contract, that third year, and Cutter's going to stay, then I would be pushing my agent to trade. Trade me. Because he's just not getting used right there. It's not beneficial for him. And that's the thing is, the way, let's say, because from seeing Winston go in this week, lets me know that they've picked up his fifth-year option. If he gets hurt, that's guaranteed. That's $20 million guaranteed.
Jeez, I'm telling you, man, that to me, man. Like,
or they put in Ryan Griffin
to that guy, man.
They could put in Ryan Griffin, which a lot of where I was, from what I understood, Ryan Griffin felt more like he was going to be the backup. He was active. They had him on the active roster. They could have put him in, but Ryan Griffin they could have put him in as the backup and just kind of. Obviously at this point, Dirk Cutter's looking at, if I don't make the playoffs, I'm probably getting fired. And Jameis brought him back. He had a very, his first drive down was good. He threw a nice fumble into the end zone and was recovered by Mike Evans. No, I did not misspeak. He literally threw a fumble. He fumbled into the end zone, and Mike Evans recovered it. That was his scoring play. Of course, he doesn't get credit for the touchdown. But he does get credit for the fumble. He does, very much. Yes, not all turnovers are equal. Yes, that's true. They are not all equal.
Right.
But I thought he was about to blow his knee on that play too. I was like, oh great. Jason Light's like, okay, he's fine. See, the teams don't get so. I don't know why they jumped the gun to pick up his fifth-year option. I think they did that to smooth along negotiations because they thought he was just going to pan out well. Then the off-season stuff happens. They're like, Then he comes in for 3 games and I don't know. It's really a tough situation because you can look at Tampa, and yes, see that's the thing. The thing is, maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick and Jameis Winston are good comparables for each other because it's almost like the same thing in and of itself. Neither guy is very athletic. Both guys have some odd escapability or ability to kind of run, although they're not runners. You don't ever see Jameis Winston or Ryan Fitzpatrick run and think, oh yeah, he's a runner. No. But they do run. And they do get out of, they're not elusive, but they do avoid getting tackled sometimes in the most miraculously odd sort of ways. So maybe they're very arm-talented guys that are awkwardly lucky, but at the same time, very unlucky. they are a quagmire in and of themselves. Like I don't know if any other team, maybe besides, no, not even the Bills, have quarterbacks that they have named as starters throw 4 interception games in the same season. I don't think there is any others. I don't know who. It would probably be a Browns team. I would venture who was the last team that had that issue. You know? But I don't understand. Cuz like the Bucs, again, I said it this year. I said it last year. You know, the Bucs always look really good on paper preseason. You know, and then when football starts getting played, it's kind of like, what? Why? How? Oh, God, it has to be so exhausting to be a Buccaneers fan. You know? And it's not like they haven't had decent draft classes either. Even going all the way back to Mark Dominic, they've had decent draft classes, decent guys in. But it's like the turnover at coach is just so perturbing, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
So, do the Bucs fire Dirk Cutter?
I don't know, but if you fire Dirk, well, here's the thing, right? It's almost the way that, you know, how teams work or whatever it is. Because remember, they had fired the previous coach because they felt that Dirk Cutter would do a better job with Jameis Winston. And yet, here we are.
Yet here we are. Maybe it is that Dirk Cutter's a much better offensive coordinator than he is a head coach.
I guess that goes against some analyst philosophy about, you know, hiring offensive coordinators, but at least some people are adding the caveat that they have to be a young offensive coordinator, you know.
But that's the thing is, in the situations that we're looking at of young offensive coordinators, they have very senior guys on the defensive coordinator. So if we use the Rams as an example, yes, Sean McVay is the offensive guy, and he's the head coach, but Wade Phillips is very much the head coach of the defense, if you would. It's funny, Dirk Cutter's Wikipedia page, his picture is still with the Falcons. That's funny. Yeah, head coach with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but yet Cutter with the Falcons in 2013 was the picture. You telling me in the last 5 years they couldn't find an updated picture of Dirk Cutter? That's so funny.
Yep. But I mean,
let's see.
I don't know. I don't know what their overall direction is going to be here with Tampa Bay, because I mean, one, there's so much that they gotta do work on as far as like personnel is concerned. I mean, the defense is, of course, piss poor right now. The offensive line, which has been, you know, kind of like one of their problems over the past few years, still a problem. And then now you got a quarterback issue because, now we got to figure out, okay, are we going to keep Winston for one more year, even though we kind of know that we can't get anywhere higher than where we're at right now with Winston? And I know that, this has been talked about, within the past couple of weeks or so. It's like, okay, so then what do? Do you get a veteran quarterback or, do you draft a quarterback there once again in Tampa Bay? So it's like, hold on. Let me see what I was going to do. Let's see if I could pull up. Because they're like at 3-7 right now?
Yeah, 3-7.
There's a lot of 3-7 folks.
The thing is, they're not outside.
Good number of teams that are 3-7.
At 3-7, they're still not outside of necessarily the playoffs.
They ain't making the playoffs, man. Come on, man.
I'm saying 9-7. You're saying at 9-7, you don't think there will be a 9-7 wild card team?
No,
I'm just saying. No. I'm not saying it's likely or no. Hold on. I'm not saying it's likely or. I'm just saying it's a possibility that there's a 9-7 wild card team in the NFC. I'm not saying that they're going to be it. I'm not giving them a glimmer of hope here. I'm just saying, taking what the actual reality of the Buccaneers are out, and we just put in mathematics. Just applying math, not physics. Just math.
That 9-7, 9-7 could get a team in the playoffs.
Could get a team, not the Buccaneers, but a team. Yes. Just so we're clear, I'm not suggesting that the Buccaneers have a chance, even though mathematically they could be 9-7 and could mathematically have a chance. History says that they have no chance. They're done. That's what history says.
Done.
That's what tendency says. That's what trends say. Anything that has to do with predicting probably what's going to happen says they are not going to make the playoffs. So if the Bucs end up 9-7, they still probably won't make the playoffs. Knowing the Bucs, there's been a couple different occasions where they had 9 and 10 win seasons and didn't make the playoffs. Just happened to be the year that they lost the tiebreaker to whatever team, so they didn't get in. Ask Jeff Garcia about that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But isn't wait a minute, what it was? But that was, I think they won the division though. There was that year that the Redskins, I think, they had been like at, I don't think they were like at 3-7. They were probably like 3-6 or something. And then they ended up, having a string of victories there with Robert Griffin III and winning the division that year. But
both the years that the Giants won the Super Bowl, they started out 0-3, both of those seasons. I'm pretty sure they started off with they had three losses in their first 4 games. Pretty sure. But they came back and they, it's about getting hot at the right time. And that's the thing is you can see Tampa work their way back into games. Like, Jameis Winston did lead them back to come within 3 points of this game. And then they lost. And yes, he got benched. And Ryan Fitzpatrick led them back to within 3 points of beating the Bengals. But at no point in time did they really command the game against the Panthers. That was clearly a loss. And the Redskins game was winnable if they could figure out how to, take some of those 406 yards that were thrown by Ryan Fitzpatrick and find their way into the end zone. He threw the length of the full football field 4 times and could not get it to the end zone. Again, like I said, it's not an issue of them moving the ball and gaining yardage. It's just an issue of scoring. Like Peyton Barber had 61 yards on 13 carries. That was a good game. That's probably one of his best games of the year. Because he only has like 500 yards on the season. He has 2 touchdowns. One of them was on Sunday. I think it's these last 2 weeks he's scored touchdowns. He scored against the Bengals, and then he scored again against the Giants. Those are his only 2. His best 2 games were against the Bengals, where he ran for 85 yards, and then the Giants, where he ran for 100. His first 100-yard game of his career. He ran for 61 yards, which is, I think, his 3rd best game of the season. All came within the last 4 games. Well, I guess he had 82 against Atlanta. He had 69 against the Saints. But anyways, again, that was a win. So if you want to have a chance of winning and you're Tampa, you need to get Peyton Barber the ball, at least 18 times. And he needs to get 60-some yards or more, to win. Or be in a position to win. 69 yards, 19 carries, 69 yards, they win. 13 carries, 82 yards, probably didn't give it to him enough. They lose, barely, to Atlanta. 85 yards on 19 carries and 1 touchdown, they barely lose to Cincinnati. 61 yards, only on 13 carries, maybe didn't give it to him enough. Barely lose. Well, not barely lose to Washington. They lost by 2 touchdowns, 2 scores. But anyways, again, 18 carries for 106 yards. Barely lose to the Giants. But this Giants game wasn't an issue, wasn't a scoring issue. I mean, if you put 35 points on the board, in theory, you should win. But as we seen last night, and the trend in the NFL, 30, 40, 50-point games from both sides is trending more towards the new norm. If that's the case, you need to be able to convert those yardage to touchdowns, to scores. And the Bucs have not been able to do that. One way to most effectively help your team, if you're a Buccaneer, particularly a Buccaneer quarterback, is throw it to players that are on your team. That would, in the most general sort of way, would be the most effective way to help positively get those yards into scores. Because it's not, again, Winston, he's only played in 3.5 games, and he's got almost 2,000 yards on the season. Or no, 1380. I mean, but he has 11 interceptions. Fitzpatrick has 2,300 yards on the season, and he has 12 interceptions. 17 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. So it's,
Right.
And here's the other issue. You're not getting the run game going when your second leading rusher is a quarterback that doesn't run, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and your third leading rusher on the team is also a quarterback, yet not a runner, Jameis Winston. And he's the backup. Backup starter in trouble, suspended. When a guy has 3.5 games on the season and he's a quarterback that's not a runner and he's the third leading rusher, you're not running the ball enough.
It's like the plays are non-existent in the playbook. And I don't understand it, one bit where you have a offense. I mean, didn't you kind of bring these players in so they could be part of your offense, and then you don't incorporate them into your offense? But some of it is partly because of their performance. But even then, you still gotta incorporate it into your offense. You can't be a one-dimensional team in the NFL, especially in the passing game.
But if you look at Vernon Hargraves, injured reserve, Chris Conte, injured reserve, Quan Alexander, injured reserve, Jack Keechie, injured reserve, Kendall Breckwell, injured reserve, Mitch Unrein, injured reserve, Evan Smith, injured reserve, O.J. Howard now this week. By the way, Bucs fans, you're out. O.J. Howard, ankle and foot injury, injured reserve. Your rookie running back, Ronald Jones, questionable. Levante David, questionable. Your backup cornerback that's supposed to be starting, M.J. Stewart, he's questionable. Justin Evans, your free
that's like half your starters right now.
Justin Evans, questionable. You're starting free safety.
Man.
Just saying, man. It's not like it's not like it's like they've been struggling with injuries. They don't have any production, very little production out of the running back position. And their defense is just riddled with injuries. Like Vinny Curry. Again, you're starting your left defensive end. Questionable. McCoy has struggled. I think he's missed 3 games this season so far. His backup, Mitch Unrein, he's on injured reserve. So Will Golson is having to play the 3 technique and
90 seconds.
The defensive end position. They on this depth chart I'm looking at here, Vita Vea, who has also had his share of injuries this season. They have his backup. Again, that's defensive tackle. His backup is Bo Allen. Bo Allen is a linebacker.
60 seconds.
So, no, never mind.
Yeah.
That's a different Bo Allen. I stand corrected. Bo Allen is very much... Okay, from Wisconsin, Bo Allen. Okay, that Bo Allen. And he's very much a defensive tackle. So, for those that listen on Blog Talk Radio, we are going into the overtime portion of the show. here in about 30 seconds. So head on over to the Spreaker app. That's
10 seconds.
SPREAKER. You can go to just the Spreaker.com too if you want to stay online. Or the app. It is a gold star. Everybody wants a gold star, right? Put a gold star on your board there, your wall, or whatever you call it on your phone. Get a gold star. James, do you have the gold star there, James? Do you have a star? A nice little star there on your board?
I'm not certain that I do there.
It's all right.
Maybe I should, but I don't think I do.
Well, he will. Well, you have an Apple, so it's probably didn't want to download right anyways.
Yeah.
Probably 15 updates after you do it.
Right. Something.
See the thing with Apple phones, you gotta worry about what you download. Yeah, because they don't have viruses, but they do have updates. They just call a virus something else. It's called an update. Apple devices, a virus is called an update. I had to take a shot at Apple there. I want to get into college football too, so yeah. Let's go ahead and do that then. Sound good? Because we're talking Bucs, and that's depressing. So, all right. Here's a new top 25. By the way, a little bit of not so breaking news. I guess if it's on CNN, everything is breaking all the time. Everything they say is breaking news. So if this is in the context of CNN, this is breaking news that Kansas Jayhawks actually were competitive in some games this year, which they really aren't ever. Fired their coach because they got a better one. They hired Les Miles. And part of the reason why, Jeff Long, their athletic director, called in a favor to Les Miles, who was living in Lincoln, Nebraska. He was taking some acting classes there at the Johnny Carson acting school or performing arts school or whatever. I know it's Johnny Carson, the Johnny Carson building. So yeah, Les Miles is the coach of Kansas. Part of it's because when you see teams like Iowa State competing in the Big 12, you kind of got to do something. And, people only want to be pointed at, poked at, and made fun of for so long before they do something about it. They hired Jeff Long. They hired Les Miles. Man, I guess this is them doing something about it. See if it amounts to anything. But number 25 is Iowa State. They filled 9 spots this week after a 24-10 loss to Texas. Number champions in the ACC. Boise State moves up 2 spots this week to the 23rd spot. Texas A&M is now ranked again. They're up to 22nd after they scored a win last week over University of Alabama Birmingham. That doesn't sound like a very good team. UAB is actually a pretty quality group of 5 team. I think they were 9-1 going into that game, something like that. Yeah, 9-1.
Yeah, man.
UAB.
Like, real quick with UAB.
18 months ago, UAB didn't have a team.
Exactly.
They
didn't even have a team.
They
you mean to tell me
UAB. So here's
they were 9-1.
So okay, here's the story on UAB. UAB football program had been building up. The last year in existence, they got ranked. They were ranked and headed to a major bowl game. And then they shut the program down for 2 years. 2 years of hemming and hawing and protesting. They got it back. Last year, their first year back. Again, their first year back. They went, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They went 8-5. They went 8-5. Their second loss of the season came to North Texas. North Texas had 2 losses last year. Three. Hold on, maybe. Yeah, 3 losses last year. 2 of them came to 3. They had 4 losses last year. 2 of those losses came to Florida Atlantic. And then the other one came from SMU and Iowa. They did also lose their bowl game to Troy. But Troy was actually a pretty good team last year, too. Troy won the Sun Belt. And North Texas finished second in Conference USA. So, I mean, again, that was a pretty good win for a team that didn't exist the year prior. Right? So UAB, they're coming into this game, again, against Texas A&M. I think a lot of pundits were trying to they might have a shot. No, I don't think they had a chance of beating Texas A&M. There was a chance of maybe making it a game at some point. But even their out-of-conference schedule this year was pretty weak. I mean, normally they play a Power 5 team, but they instead went Savannah State, Coastal Carolina, Tulane. They beat Tulane, who has showed up this year at times. Charlotte has showed up. Louisiana Tech, Rice, North Texas, so on and so on. Southern Mississippi, they ended up going into 2 overtimes against Texas A&M. Not the case. It was pretty much a straight-up loss. However, their quarterback, and this is important, had a career high against Texas A&M in passing. If it will pull up here, it's this. He threw for 306 yards and 2 touchdowns, also 2 interceptions. So he had almost twice as many yards as the Texas A&M quarterback. So, I mean, career game for him against the Aggies. Unfortunately, he in quarters 2 and 3, they couldn't find a way to score. That's usually problematic when you're playing against a Power 5 team, especially a team that, played Clemson, a team that will, for all likeliness, is going to be in the playoff again for the 3rd, 4th season in a row. You can't not score against them. So that's really where the game, if they tie them, if they could score 10 points in the second and 10 points in the third, that's 20 points. They lose by 1 still. But I'm just saying, UAB, hats off to UAB. They're holding it down as much as anybody could hope them to. Not even existing 2 years ago. So, Texas A&M, back in the top 25. Just ahead of them at 21, Utah State. They're up 2 positions from last week. Syracuse is down 8. I picked them to beat Notre Dame, and I was wrong. So they fall down to 20th. Northwestern wins. They move up 3 spots to 19. Mississippi State moves up 3 spots after their, trivial win over Arkansas. That has went downhill fast. Utah moves up 2 spots to 17. Washington Huskies at 8-3. I think a lot of people had a lot more hopes for them than being 8-3. Kentucky. Now Kentucky's at 15th. They move up 2 spots. Their win comes over. It was Middle Tennessee State. Who actually they played in bowl games for the last 4 years. The thing is about Tennessee, and now this is senior day for them, and it's a team that's actually had a pretty decent season. They should have beaten Tennessee. They couldn't find a way to do that. Georgia beat them. That's a game they were supposed to lose. They played Texas A&M close. Other than that, they beat everybody else on their schedule. They only have 3 losses. The Kentucky Wildcats are coming on their last game of the season with only 3 losses. That's huge. This team has been bowl eligible for now 3 seasons, and this senior class has been a big part of getting this football program back on the map. Now, there's an interview for one of the players, one of the seniors, that were very upset about the attendance. And I think rightfully so. They, try to pull them up here. Josh Allen, he's a senior, he's a linebacker, has been really big for them this season. He has, why is it, sometimes just the way that stats and stuff get pulled up is just so stupid. 1, 2, 3. He has 13 sacks on the season, which I think he tied a Kentucky record, or beat a Kentucky record doing so. Playing his last game as a Wildcat. And people don't show up. And he basically went off on a rant. Was like, so you're not going to show up to this senior day game, this game, see your seniors off in the right way because we lost to Georgia, we lost a couple football games. It doesn't make sense. So I feel him there, but see, that's the thing is, football programs carry basketball schools too. So, that thing is in Kentucky. What else is going on? What else is going on there? Honestly, what else is going on? What was going on last Saturday? Did their basketball team play? Is that what it was? People decided to go to the basketball game instead? Could be. This is they're a basketball school. It'd be like FAMU deciding to go watch the band instead of the football team. Sure, it's happened. So, but anyways, Tennessee moved up couple spots here in the rankings to 15th. Texas moves up 1 to 14th. West Virginia falls 4 spots to number 13 after their loss this weekend. Their 4-point loss to Oklahoma State. They fall. Penn State goes up 2 spots. Florida bumps up 2 spots. Ohio State does not move. They're still number 10. Not sure how. They win 52-51 over Maryland. Maryland. James, you want to hit on Maryland?
That game there. I mean that was a game that Ohio State should have lost.
Ohio State should have lost. Let me go back here. Ohio State should have lost to Penn State. Should have lost to. They did lose to Purdue.
Yeah.
They should have lost to Nebraska. They should have lost to Michigan State, and they should have lost to Maryland now. So they should have lost a whole bunch of games. I think if you watch these games, you understand that Ohio State is not. They're still at 10. They're 10-1. Ohio State is the worst one-loss team out there, without a doubt. They're second in conference in the East, the Big Ten East. So if they do beat Michigan, they would go into the conference championship against Northwestern. And if they win and they beat Northwestern, then the Big Ten's not going to have a team in the national championship game. They won't. There will not be a Big Ten team in. Sorry. They're the worst one-loss team out there. And again, they're holding them there at number 10 because they have one loss.
So you're saying that Utah State would beat them?
Utah State, yeah. I think anybody in the top 25, literally anybody in the top 25 right now could beat Ohio State. Even UCF. I think UCF could beat Ohio State. I'm actually hoping that UCF plays a one-loss or a two-loss Ohio State team. That's what I'm hoping happens. Just so. Okay, UCF people, look at me here. If you're on Facebook, UCF, if they win all of their games decisively the rest of the season, and somehow every team above them finds a way to lose that last game of the season, which isn't possible, but let's say it happens. If they all lose their game, and then half of those teams lose their conference championship game. So obviously Georgia and Alabama will play in the conference championship. If Alabama loses to Auburn and loses to Georgia, they're in over UCF. I'm sorry. If Clemson loses to Pitt, they're going to be in over UCF. If Notre Dame loses, well, they only have one more game left, and it's against USC. If they lose to, I don't know what we're doing or becoming or have any sort of an identity. We're kind of just showing up whenever they have games. University of Southern California Trojans, if they lose to them, UCF gets in. Not over them. Oklahoma. If Oklahoma finds a way to lose to West Virginia this weekend or likely next weekend, because they're going to play for the championship against each other.
Texas. Yep.
Oklahoma's still probably in over UCF. You have to understand that UCF, the main thing that they're looking at UCF, by the way, 3-loss LSU team does not get in over UCF. By what this shows. But it won't come to that. So UCF will likely, what this will look like is they play USF this weekend, Friday, I believe, right? Which I'm not going to watch that game.
Yeah, Friday.
I'll be watching Nebraska, Iowa. And then they will play in the conference championship. That will be on December 1st at 3:30. I'll watch that game because that night I'm going to watch a boxing match. So I'm just going to get a bunch of football in that night and boxing. Tons of sports. But they're going to be playing against Houston. A Houston who doesn't have their best player in Ed Oliver because he's going to play in the NFL next year. And, so it's not even their best player will be on that team. But yet, still, Major Ipplewhite has them at 8-3, 5-2 in conference. So you'll see UCF play against Houston, which they have not played Houston this year. So it might be an interesting game. We'll see. But
even with that, though, I don't know, man. I don't know, man. Because Houston is playing at Memphis, right? And if I'm not mistaken, their quarterback, Derek King, is out for the year. That starting quarterback, he ain't there. So you're not going to have, Derek King. Oh, but they will have Oliver, though. They said he's playing. They said he's going to be playing. That's a shock.
I don't believe it.
I'm surprised at that one.
I don't believe it.
That's what I'm looking at. It says a source. A source says that he plans to play against Memphis. That's crazy. So, that's going to be an interesting game right there because they didn't lock down that West Division yet. They got to beat Memphis in order to win the division, and that's crazy. If they lose to Memphis, they be tied with them, and
beat
SMU wins. It'd be like a
because that'd
be a 4-way tie, bro.
No, because they beat Tulane, but they
beat Tulane,
but they lost to SMU.
Yeah, they did lose to SMU. Wait a minute, they lost it. How did they lose it? Wait, well, that's the craziest part I've ever seen right there. So you need to this Houston team, right? They
they had
only one loss.
So here's the other crazy thing.
57 on USF, and then the next week they lose to SMU.
See, Memphis beat SMU, but they lost to Tulane.
Oh boy. Yeah, it's gonna be man.
So if Memphis beats Houston,
if Houston loses to Memphis, then who gets in?
Let's see here, SMU. Who do they play? And SMU plays Tulsa. So SMU would have to beat Tulsa, and Tulane plays.
plays Navy.
Navy.
I think they play Navy. Yeah.
So they have to beat Navy.
So they play the bottom two. Right. So they win. Tulane already lost. They lost to Houston, right? So that dropped them. They already lost to SMU. So they'd be the first ones out because they already lost to Houston and SMU. They did beat Memphis, but they lost to Houston and SMU. That's a whole lot right there. I don't know, man. That's gonna be a crazy little scene.
It'd probably go to overall record after that, so it'd probably be Memphis in.
Yeah,
because Memphis. Because if they're all 5-3, Memphis would have they'd have an 8 and they'd be 8-4 with a tiebreaker over Houston. That's what they need. So Memphis just has to win. If Memphis wins, they're in. If Houston wins, they're in. For SMU and Tulane, well, yeah, they're out of it. They're done. Because both teams can't lose. They play each other. So if Houston loses and they both win, then they all end up being 5. Then they all end up being 5-3. But Memphis would be 8-4. So they have a leg up. I don't know. I don't see Houston. I don't know. I don't see Houston losing, though. I don't know. I'll predict Houston wins that game. Also, on games, if we want to predict games, you know what? Might as well. Let me finish the rankings real quick. So UCF is at 9, Washington State at 8, LSU at 7, Oklahoma at 6, Georgia 5, Michigan State 4, Notre Dame 3, Clemson 2, Alabama 1, and again for like the third straight week. My source tells me everyone in the committee has ranked Alabama number 1. Although I saw a hilarious meme this weekend because the Citadel gave Alabama a run for their money for a minute. The Citadel was actually leading at one point. It was tied at half. So it would go. Well, they didn't lead. They were tied. They tied it up. So it tied it up at 10 apiece, and then it was excited. And it said 2 minutes later, it said like 50-17. I was like, you give up 27 points in one quarter. Clearly, they, I don't know. Alabama was just toying with them in the first half, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
And Tua did start. He played all the way through the third quarter. He put up. He 340 yards, 3 touchdowns. So, the kid has thrown two interceptions all season long. He's had 3 or more touchdowns in all but 5 games. So, over half the games, he's had 3 or more touchdown passes. And he's rushed for touchdowns in 4 different games. So, would you say he was your front runner for Heisman this year?
Who? Tua?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because the numbers that he was able to put up and kind of like his overall quarterback rating. So you see the change in the type of offense that they've had over the course of the season. So with that, I mean, I don't see that there is like that much of a debate. I mean, you could say that Kyler Murray would possibly be close, but it's basically Tua and pretty much everybody else, especially since you had who is it for West Virginia basically go down to Oklahoma State. That was a bad loss by them. With Will Grier, their quarterback for West Virginia, them losing to Oklahoma State, especially the way that they lost to Oklahoma State. I think they were like up 14 or something like that, and they still ended up losing. That really, really, hurt their chances at, going after the Big 12 title and possibly being a member of the college football playoff later in the year.
I voted for the Maxwell Award. By the way, so the semifinals voting was done Sunday. So this last week and the conference championship and obviously the voting's already done. So those two potential games have no bearing on it. And also the Bednardic Award. I voted for both of those. I'm not gonna say who I voted for, but I did not vote for Tua. I can tell you that I did not vote for Tua for the Maxwell this year. But it looks like this year. This week. Get into the schedule this week before we wrap it up here. Nebraska, Iowa, I'm going to be watching. I think it's going to be an interesting game. Again, another game Nebraska could win. This Texas playing against Kansas, it's a trap game. This Kansas team, they got a new head coach. They kind of were fight before. We'll see. Could be a trap game for them. Probably the best game is going to end up being like Washington State, Oklahoma, West Virginia. It's going to be good. I feel like Michigan's just going to blow out Ohio State.
Oh, they do.
Florida is probably going to blow out Florida State. They should.
No, they won't.
Yes,
nope.
they will. Come on
nope.
now.
Nope. That's not going to happen. I'm telling you, Florida State is going to go in there, and they're going to beat those punk-ass Gators.
That'd be nice. That'd be interesting.
By at least 13 points. Watch. That would be hilarious, but watch.
So, well, that does it for the show this weekend. Thank you all for tuning in. For those of you watching over on Facebook, if you're so like over there, share over there, subscribe over on YouTube, and but that pretty much does it here this weekend or today for us. So we look forward to this weekend and the games that we have coming up over there. I'm out. Peace.